All right. So this evening, our study is on cancer and mineral deficiency, part 2. And we've already prayed. In the last presentation, we covered quite some information. I'm going to kind of review to start out with as we discuss part 2 of the condition. All right. So let's move on. It's important to to know the how much cells in our bodies and what we're looking at. And Dr. Reams brought forth the idea that there is 5 million atoms in one drop of water. 5 million. 5 million, if anything, in one drop of anything, it's very, very small. All right. But in each cell in our body is made up of 60 to 85 atoms. There are 100 to 3,000 cells per gram of body weight. And there is 1,500 to 45,000 cells per ounce. Just think about that. We're looking at size. Then we have 90,000 to 400,000 cells per pound. And that's a variable, depending upon various situations or persons, you know. And we see in the perfect health, we have 40,000 cells per liter should be exchanging. And that is because our efficiency is very low. So we 4%, 0.04 of 90,000 is about 36,000 cells, running off to about 40,000 cells in the perfect equation that should be exchanged each day. And really, the rate is a whole lot faster than day. But I don't want to scare you by giving you that figure. So this is a perfect equation, perfect body chemistry in which all the nutrients and minerals are in proper ratio within the system. Disease of any kind, deficiencies of any kind does not show up. It doesn't exist. And this is why you see sugars 1.5, 640 over 640, 6.5 C on the salts, and the 0.04 M, that is the 40,000 cells should be exchanged per liter of urine. That's what we should get. And still be in perfect health. It looks like a lot, but we have trillions upon trillions of cells in our body. So 40,000 is a very small number, but to be in perfect health, because energy in is perfect, persons would not be aging too rapidly, too quickly. All right, we'll talk more about that as we go on, but our focus is on the cell debris, the 0.04 M. Remember in the last presentation, we talked about alpha cells, which is a perfect cell, which will be reflective of the chemistry I just showed you. But perfect cells have to change. They lose so much energy, and then they move to another stage, which is called delta cells. As delta cells, they are in the process, they should be changed as delta cells. But if they're not changed, then you find that they go to omega cell, which are dead cells or worn out cells. We covered that in the previous presentation. And basically what we're looking at, you notice that the alpha cells, which are perfect, are smaller than the delta cells. The delta cells increasingly get larger and larger, and that is because the process of deterioration that occurs within the cell, creating more moisture, creating friction, and so on and so forth. So when the healthy cell reaches its climax of growth in its life cycle, it must be replaced by another cell. So it sends a message to the brain sends a message to the liver with the correct programming for the cell that is being replaced. And providing the nutrients are available to the liver will make that basic amino acid structure and sends it out in the bloodstream. And by the time it gets to the particular location, work will be done to that amino acid structure, then it forms a new cell. Here it is again, another view. Alpha, it goes to delta. As delta cells, it's just indicating that the cell is losing energy. It has lost so much energy and it should be replaced. I mentioned that we're a brand new set of cell about every 6 months. The teeth takes a couple of years to grow out, but everywhere else within that 6 months period, we're a brand new set of cell. And this is mathematically worked out by Dr. Reams. So when it becomes omega cell, it breaks connection with the nerve. It has no connection with the nerve. It's a dead cell. It's like a car without a battery. It can't go nowhere, it can't move, can't breathe, and so on. But the situation is lack of minerals cause the delta cells to be retained until they become omega cells or dead cell. So in other words, if while the process of delta cell lingers, waiting for a new cell to replace them, if the new cells does not come, the delta cell are retained until they lose all of their nitrogen and become dead cells. At that point, then it has to be thrown out, and we'll talk more about that. But that's what we're looking at. As Dr. Reams sums it up, he says, I want to call your attention that cells should be replaced before they become an omega cell, a carcinoma cell. And the only reason that they become carcinoma or omega cell is that they've outlasted their ability to function, and then they rot. And then there is cancer or carcinoma. So what we're looking at is because these cells were not replaced, they are retained and become cancer cells. They're dead cells, they're rotten flesh when they're retained in their location for too long. So the two category of cells we're looking at are the delta cells and the omega cells. And notice again, the alpha cells are smaller than the delta cell. And that is this is the case in most organs of the body. The organ that this is never the case is the lung tissue, because the lung tissue, we breathe out carbon dioxide, and it's the carbon, as the cell breaks down, the carbon goes into the core of the cell, and carbon is the governor for moisture. So it brings the moisture in, and as a result, the cell gets swollen, gets larger, get bigger, and medical science say it is growing in size, but it's just simply losing energy. All right. So focusing in on the delta cell a little bit more, still a summary of previous. So the delta cells still maintain a connection with the nerve, right? They haven't gone that far yet. The they're larger than the alpha cell. They will be replaced when new cells are formed, or as the new cells are formed, then the old one will be sloughed off or thrown out, and this is what we call base exchange. All right, so a new cell is built into the place where the problem once existed as the old cell is thrown out and a new one is built in its place. The delta cell was replaced. It never became an omega cell. So if delta cells are replaced on time before they lose all their energy, then they will not be omega cells. Are we together? All right. So in the event of mineral deficiency, for a prolonged period of time, then omega cells will be formed. Omega cells, once again, have lost all of its nitrogen, its break connection with the nerve. They are dead cells. They're much smaller than the alpha cell because they're not swelling up with moisture, but instead they shrink. They don't even look like their parent cells. All right. So that is your omega cells. All right. So the omega cells may stay in the area once they are released, once they die off. This is where the issue comes in. Once these cells die, what becomes of them? Now, in a healthy person, they will be pushed out from the location within 1 to 3 days. But in an unhealthy person, then those omega cells will stay in the area for weeks and months and perhaps years. And what we're looking at staying there, we're looking at decaying tissue. We're looking at flesh that is being rot. So if you have that kind of stuff in your body going on, then it's going to be poisonous to the rest of the system. All right, we together? Here is an example or illustration as far as where the prostate is concerned. When you consider the tissue that we're looking at, it's rotten flesh. You see the opening there. There's inflammation taking place, but essentially, while you cannot distinguish it in the picture, but what's going on is the cells have converted to omega cells. The break connection has no more connection with the nerve, and so they're just sitting there. And the reason why the one cell is affected is the reason why many cells in that tissue or organ will be affected. Same deficiency condition. And typically, they say most men in their 40s, their prostate will become enlarged. Why it becomes enlarged? Because you have a bunch of delta cells that is forming, so their prostate is becoming larger, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about the growth of the cancer, okay? The tissue, the healthy tissue around it, the cancer, is actually deteriorating. If it's deteriorating very rapidly, going from alpha to omega cell very quickly, it is said to be malignant. If it is deteriorating slowly, it is termed benign. And if that area is deteriorating, whether it's going slow or fast, it becomes like a lighthouse, if we could use that word, or a magnet. It becomes a funnel for energy to be lost. And therefore, it starts to attract to it other things, bacteria, funguses, and other omega cells that are in the body coming from other places. And all of that stuff can start to accumulate in that area, causing it to increase further in size. Okay, so again, so we're told it is growing, but tissues around it is deteriorating, losing more and more energy, and all the garbage or filth in the body can see that as a dumpster for loss of energy for tissue that are less than healthy. Okay. So illness don't just strike, and even cancer doesn't just strike uh, without any rhyme or reason, just any place, you know? It is not that way. As we mentioned, we're looking at mineral deficiency for cancer, mineral deficiency for diabetes, mineral deficiency for lupus. We're looking at mineral deficiency for all conditions because mineral deficiency affect the cell. Now, how we think and how we live our lives will increase or decrease the loss of energy. All right? Are we together? So before we look at, show you further how the where illness will strike, the indicators, it's important to note once again our perfect equation in which the body makes 5 billion, not million, 5 billion amino acid per day to maintain perfect health. The gastric juice is the strongest it's possibly can. The vitamin C, you have the maximum amount of vitamin C occurring, taken in the blood, and the cellular exchange or the base exchange occur every 6 months with no mineral deficiency. So everything is just working perfectly. This person with perfect health would not be aging too quickly. All right. Aging too fast, then we see instead of 0.04 and 40,000, we're looking at 4 billion or 4 million cells being thrown out of the body on a daily basis. I hope I'm making it plain. So here we have it, 0.04 or 40,000 cells per liter of urine in perfect health. But for the most part, once the other numbers go off, which offset the nutrient value that's available, so automatically there is more cells that are being thrown out due to the increased mineral deficiency. So there's increased amount of omega and delta cell formation, and it has to go somewhere. So when you look at the urine, you see all those particles. Those are pieces from your cells. Okay, that's just a visible part. Most of it goes off as heat and electrical energy. So I mentioned that it's not just by coincidence that problem strikes any given place. And looking from my right, there are key minerals or key substance or key nutrient that fits in the orbit of each cell in the body. There are certain common element common to all the cell, the primary of the cells. But when you look at the lung tissue, the lung tissue requires and uses 84 minerals to maintain its cells. All right. The eye is the key mineral for the eye. The key substance for the eye is vitamin A. So vitamin A deficiency over a long period of time is going to affect the eyes, okay? Be it night blindness or a different issue, but you can rest assured that when vitamin A is deficient for a long period of time, then problems with the eyes will develop. The medical science calls it various different names, but it doesn't matter. Vitamin A deficiency result in problems with the eye and usually coupled with oxygen deficiency as well. Now, when we look at the heart muscles, the key nutrient, the unique nutrient in the heart muscle that makes it strong is a phosphate form of arsenic. We're not talking about the poison. We're talking about arsenic in the phosphate form, and you find that a key substance in which you find that is the asparagus, very rich source of that particular food for the heart or nutrient for the heart. So if this mineral is lacking, then the heart muscle will get weaker and weaker. All right. And so it won't be able to pump the blood as strong as it should be. Okay, going on around back on the other side, and look at the brain. The key nutrient for the brain is potassium. So when potassium is deficient over an extended period of time, then the cells in the brain will die off prematurely. Okay? And so it is a common situation that then we would think about brain tumor as a potassium deficiency, so brain tumor develops. There are other things, of course, that can damage brain cells, which would result in the cells being affected. But when we look at it from a nutritional point of view, we're looking at potassium deficiency. Oxygen deficiency usually is a requirement for the brain, and that factors in, but the mineral is potassium. So I want my brain to remain strong. I need to eat foods that are rich in potassium. When we look at the thyroid, the thyroid cell, the thyroid, the key mineral, which everybody know about, is iodine. Okay, so iodine deficiency will certainly affect the cells of the thyroid, and it's some of the same substance that uses to make the thyroid hormone. Okay, and let's say iron and vitamin A deficiency, again, it's going to affect the blood. The reason vitamin A factors in, because iron will not be available unless vitamin A is available to the system. So knowing these things, not only the blood-making organ would be affected, such as is condition they would deal with as leukemia. All right. Okay, and we have at the bottom there reproductive organs. The reproductive organ, the key nutrient, when this substance is lacking, those organs will not if, not, probably those organs will suffer, the reproductive organ. And so manganese is the element of life, without which there would be no reproduction on the face of the earth in neither bacteria nor animal. Manganese is the element of life, and you find that in your seeds, foods with seeds, because manganese allow them to grow, to reproduce. All right, so this is some idea. Of course, we know the bone would be the phosphate form of calcium. Okay, So when the phosphate form of calcium is lacking, then we develop problems with the bone. Okay. All right, now I give you an example here of a particular chemistry. The sugars 8.0, the urine pH 5.0, and the saliva pH 540, the salts 38, the cell debris for him with 3 pluses, which is indicating that the urine sample is looking quite cloudy because there's so many particles in it. And the ammoniacal nitrogen, which is 12, the nitrate nitrogen of 12 over the ammoniacal ammonia nitrogen. In this situation, there's an increased amount of delta and omega cell. I mean, it is as simple as ABC. Whether this person is having symptoms that are recognizable or not, which this person would be having a ton of different symptoms. But the fact of the matter is, because of the various deficiencies in this person's chemistry, they would be having a ton, and that's why the 4M pluses are there, a ton of delta cell and a ton of omega cell. We'll come back to that and give you some more information on that later. All right, so here we have a urine sample, and we know this person is not drinking enough water. They have a lots of dead cells, 400,000. All right, instead of 40,000, 400,000 plus when it's that cloudy. So now, as we begin to look at some of the solutions to the excessive amount of omega and delta cells, we know for a fact that unless new cells are being built, the old cells, the delta cells, are going to be retained in their location until they lose so much energy, they break connection with the nerve, they become dead cells like a car without a battery. Now, the liver comes into play here. Remember, I mentioned in previous presentation that the liver is responsible for the rest of the body, so to speak, for producing the raw material that every cell, every organ, every tissue requires or use in the body. So, and the liver uses these here in the building of these amino acids: water, oxygen, calcium, iron, iodine, and vitamin A. These are the major substances that the liver will use in the production of all these amino acids. So it builds these 5 billion different amino acids per day, which are the building blocks for the cells. The cells are not completely built in the liver. They're only 60 to, these amino acids are only 60 to 80% completely built. They're thrown out, they're thrown out into the bloodstream. Now, these amino acid, nitrogen is the core of your amino acid. Nitrogen is what make amino acid, or make protein that sets it apart from your carbohydrate. So the nitrogen in all these 6 billion different amino acids, 5 billion, 6 billion in a lifetime, is a cationic nitrogen, and that's based upon the spin of the nitrogen. I don't hope to give you all this detail, but I just give you an appreciation for what we're looking at health from a body chemistry point of view. So the nitrogen in the core of these amino acids are cationic. So that makes those amino acids, when they are finished and are dumped out from the liver, they are anionic amino acid, and anions go up, they rise, cations go down. Okay, don't worry about that detail, but I say this to you to illustrate something real well to you. Lemons, on the other hand, has nitrogen in the core that are cationic. The finished cell of your lemons have nitrogen in the core that are cationic, so it makes the finished cell of the lemon an anionic substance, all right? Now, all other food has an anionic nitrogen in the core of the amino acid, the core of their finished cell, which makes them cationic foods. So all the other foods are cationic except lemon. Lemon then is the only anionic food. So when we look at those 5 billion different amino acids that are being produced in the liver and thrown into the bloodstream, if we wanted to increase the rate of the production of these amino acids, which all goes to the building and repairing of the body and tissue throughout the system, then one way we can do it is to use plenty of lemons. And that's exactly what we do when we think about body chemistry program. Lemon juice is the base, form the base of the one of the fluid that persons usually drink, and they drink it all day long, throughout the day, every hour on the hour for 10 hours during the day. Because this way, we speeding up the process of rebuilding and repairing. And so repairing and rebuilding can occur at the fastest possible rate for their age. It takes place quickly. Because we give the liver a jump start by giving them this nitrogen, which it simply is going to use in the building process. Are you with me? Okay, so you learn a little bit of body chemistry at the same time. Now, so the amino acids are worked upon, and so then new cells are built, and onto the end of the nerve, the omega cells in the area will be pushed out. All right, so when new cells are built, so the amino acid are worked upon in different places in the body, and eventually they go to the location where there is problem and to replace, to build new cells. When that occurred, the omega cell, which are just sitting there, the body will throw them out, will begin to throw them out, because now it's gaining some energy. Now, the omega cells in the blood, then the amount of omega cells in the blood will naturally increase until the tissues are repaired. Because let's face it, a person just starting a health situation, a health journey, as we looked at this here, there are lots of omega and delta cells coming out, hence the 4M with 3 pluses. They're not drinking water, so there's nothing to flush out all those dead cell and omega cells, all the filth that's in their body. They're not doing anything to flush it out. So when they get on a program, they start drinking water and drinking fluid, they're going to help to flush the system. So the 4M plus is going to drop, because they remove some of that excess. But then as the minerals are available and new cells are being built, then that number is going to go back up, because now we're building new cells and throwing old cells out. So that number would naturally tend to rise back up, but then it comes back down when the organs and tissues are rebuilt as the condition improves, right? Okay. I hope we are following. Now, looking at this number to show you that with a chemistry like this here, there is a tremendous amount of mineral deficiencies. This person's lifestyle is not conducive to health. And you can throw all the herbs at them, you can throw all the books at them, and still with this particular chemistry like this here, it'd be a fighting a losing battle. There are certain things that has to be done first. Some of the deficiency, there's a gross deficiency of water. All right. There's a tremendous deficiency of iron, a tremendous deficiency of vitamin A, oxygen deficiency, vitamin C deficiency, calcium deficiency, iodine deficiency, manganese deficiency, and the list could go on and on just by this chemistry. Okay? So somehow there's a systematic way to correct the situation with all these omega and delta cells floating around within the system. There is a systematic way, and we'll get to that in a minute. So once again, with that kind of situation, there will be increased amount of delta cells and omega cells within their bodies. When you think about the site of the problem, the collection of omega and delta cells, particularly omega cells, we think about there would be some inflammation there. And medical science today recognize inflammation as a common factor with all illness. So if there's inflammation usually bring with it some swollen, some excess fluid. All right. Just imagine the last time you smite your finger in the car door. What happened the next day? All right. So there would be lots of uh, dead cells that are being thrown off. They're just being fallen off because you got so much accumulation of dead cell, rotten flesh in the area. There's nothing to keep them from falling off. So they're going to be falling all over the place. If they're falling all over the place, they're going to fall in the interstitial fluid, and then they're going to be collected in your lymph vessels and are going to eventually be dumped back out into the blood circulation. And so then we're looking at then what they call the spread of these omega cells. Okay, so we will have dead tissue, dead cancer cells being sloughed off, falling off because there's so much in excess, and they will be carried in the capillaries. Now, when you add with this person, remember, was not drinking water. Their salts were high, their sugars were high, their urea was high, and urea's wherever there's excess nitrogen is going to thicken the fluid. The high urea thickens the blood. The high salt thickens the blood. The high sugar thickens the blood. So, and you have these dead cells, omega cells that's accumulating. And now when they fall off and they end up in the bloodstream, when they go to the capillaries, it's going to be a difficult time to move around. It's going to be a difficult time. And you have a ton of those things coming and backing up. So guess what? It's highly likely that if that is the condition of the body, it's likely that other tissues would be weakened by mineral deficiencies. And when all these dead cancerous tissue omega cells are collected in that area, no doubt there might have been in that particular location deterioration omega cells that already started to multiply in that tissue. And so now you have these further dead cells collecting, coming from over by the prostate, and now they end up in the liver, which most things, all filth, all garbage end up in the liver anyway. So it's going to be a problem. Now, of course, medical science will look at it and say, it's the cancer has spread, it's gotten to this organ, even though they will not say if the primary location was the prostate and now it's spread to the kidneys, they will not call it, even though they identify same cells that were at the prostate, they will not call it prostate cancer in the kidney, right? And that wouldn't make sense because it's not in the kidney. But they would do that, call it still the primary prostate cancer with secondary involvement. But what in the body chemistry way of looking at things, we don't see that cancer can be, um, unless there's a cancer there, unless there's a weakness there, then it cannot cause cancer to be there in the other location. All right. There has to be a weakness. They probably have enough omega cell cancer already started in that area. And all this, the filter, all the garbage from the rest of the body just gravitate to that area. Hence, okay, there is cancer there as well. But they would typically say, okay, it's a spread of the cancer from one side to the other, and that's why there's cancer over there. But from a body chemistry point of view, we don't view it that way. Okay. The tissue is weakened, and so um, it began to develop its own cancer, its own delta and omega cell. Like the chemistry that I illustrated to you, the deficiencies are multiple. So not only will it affect prostate, will affect the thyroid, will affect the bone marrow and the brain and so on. It will be affecting all these organs. So all these organs can have their own omega cells being formed, creating their own problem. And the common factor is that the person is not drinking water to flush anything out. And that is a tremendous problem. Okay. So here, and I took this from this site, tumor rapidly growing, invading cells. That's typically how medical science views it. But as I mentioned earlier, the cells are deteriorating, they're losing energy. All right. And um, they say it's growing. Okay. So in this case, as in this particular chemistry, the liver is suffering greatly. Where do you start to begin to change the chemistry? Yes, they're deficient in calcium, they're deficient in various minerals. But if you just come and start throwing minerals and nutrients at this person, their liver is going to look at you and say, what planet did you come from? That's not my problem. My problem is that I need to unburden. I need to get rid of all this stuff that hindering that's preventing me from functioning. First of all, we got to remove the impurities that's collecting the stored stagnant bile and so on. Those things have to be removed. And so there has to be a systematic way, the plan of action, the first thing that kind of need to be done. All right. So we need to correct the chemistry so that the substance or building cells become available. All right. What are we going to do? We look at that 38. That's saying no water. That's saying not enough water. We look at that 12/10, not enough water. Blood thick, 4M++. All those dead cells are coming out of the blood. They're coming out of the blood. So all those have an influence to thicken the blood. A thickened blood cannot carry enough oxygen. Remember, I mentioned what the needs of the liver is. Liver need water, oxygen, calcium, iron, iodine, and vitamin A. These are the bulk of what the liver uses in the production and manufacturing of some of the 5 billion different amino acids per day and 6 billion in a lifetime to maintain perfect health. So, and when we compare this with the particular equation, which I use as an illustration, we see there's water lacking, we see there's oxygen lacking, we see there's calcium lacking, we see there's iron lacking, we see there's iodine lacking, we see there's vitamin A lacking. These things are not available. So the first thing that generally people who approach health from a body chemistry point of view, the first thing that they would do is what we call a water washout. Okay, we got to flush the system out, flush the pipeline out because it's sluggish. It's a traffic jam in the system, in the lymph as well as in the bloodstream. So water washout, generally persons would end up drinking between 2 to 4, in some cases 5 ounces of distilled water every half an hour for 10 hours during the day while resting, while fasting. They're not doing a thing but drinking the fluid and drinking it on the schedule. By doing this here, it allows for the body to use the fluid most efficiently to wash the long pipeline, to flush it out efficiently as compared to let's say drinking it just anytime you want to drink water. Here's some water. You need to drink this all by the end of the day. That's a slow process. We want to get things happen quickly, so therefore we schedule them starting from 8 a.m. while resting, 4 ounces or 3 ounces, depending upon their body weight, every half an hour. And they had to hit it on schedule, hit it on time, and things happen quickly at that rate. Now, the next thing we do once that day is completed, usually we get the lemon in. Okay, so they're switching over to a lemon water or lemonade fast. All right, object is to get the liver to flush, to clean up the stored stagnant bile, all the garbage and the filth that's there that's preventing its function. Those things need to be removed, need to be cleaned out. And then once that is cleaned out, between 3 to 6 days, then we stabilize the body with just diet. We're still just dealing with diet and juices. Generally, there may be some systemic enzymes, such as nattokinase or serrapeptase, and so on, being used in the process in this time, but it's just primarily the food, the green juices, light diet after they come off the fast. Very light, easy to digest. So we're slowly ministering energy back to the liver. And then after the light diet, then we would begin to give the supplement. What usually happened then, by this time, that chemistry look a way lot different. It's changed a lot. Now this person is feeling 1,000,000 times better than what they were. Now this person feels safer, feel like they can live again, feel like they got some energy. As they were before, as indicated by the numbers, they had no energy. Okay, you may say, but this person could be on a vegetarian or plant-based diet. Yes, they may be on the greatest plant-based diet. They may be on great supplements, but as long as the chemistry looks like something like that, this person would be closer to the grave than they are to having life. Okay, so now I am going to let me bring this point. One of the key substance that is utilized during the course of the planned systematic program. So this is not just anything go. There's a planned systematic program. So after after the fast, the light diet, then after the light diet, their supplements are introduced, designed to move the chemistry, designed to supply the correct calcium that is needed. And when we look at that particular chemistry, it's the person is very deficient in calcium. There's a lot of things going on, but systematically it can be changed. So the omega and the delta cell, what we're doing with the fluid, we're flushing out those omega and delta cells that's floating around in the bloodstream and in the lymphatics. We clean those up, or at least the people who do the body chemistry work anyway. That's the object, to clean things up. The lemon juice will build. Lemons supply the basic raw material for building, and the distilled water, which is the water of choice used on the body chemistry, the distilled water is flushing. So we have building and flushing going on at the same time, which allows for restoration to occur at the fastest possible rate. Back in the 30s, Dr. Reams met with Dr. Einstein, and Dr. Einstein challenged him, stating that he has found out how to release all the energy in matter, hence the atomic bomb. All right. So he challenged Dr. Reams to see how he could harness the energy and convert it back to matter. Dr. Reams was a wise scientist, took his challenge. He went to his lab and he sort of figured things out. He figured things out mathematically first, then he goes to the lab. And he found out that no man was able to do that, to, once the energy is released, to capture that energy and to make matter, to make flesh. But he found out that that is what the liver is doing. Digestion, release the energy from the food, carried to the liver capture those energy and assemble them, convert them to tissue, and that is occurring. But what he did found out, this is how he found out the lemon. He found out, though, as he told him, that he was not able to do that, but he found out how to speed up the process that nature does to accomplish the rebuilding and repairing at the fastest possible rate. And that's where the lemon water comes in, and that speeds up the process. All right. Now I will open up for some questions, maybe some clarifications, or whatever the case may be. All right. Is there any question? Very silent audience. Okay.
I'll say something here.
Okay.
So, one thing I've realized from today's lecture is that most of us medical missionaries, we, without the information or the data that you can collect from body chemistry, we are working blindly.
Mm-hmm.
And when we work blindly, we could be working against ourselves, because we're in fact providing the body with the nutrients that it needs, but the body is not at a place where it's able to assemble those nutrients and utilize them.
Right. That's right. That's correct.
Yeah. So that's interesting for me to learn that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously, the wash and rebuild kind of action.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's right. Any other questions or comment? Of
Quick
course, the rest
question.
of the folks slept in.
I have a
Quick.
curiosity question.
Okay.
So in your plan of action, you
Mm,
talked about the water washout and the lemon water
mm,
fast. And you
mhm,
said that the person is only fasting and resting from
mhm.
8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, that means they're fasting all day long and all
Oh, but
night.
I'm saying and resting. So how are they doing that? Because the brain is always working. The brain's always thinking, how are you resting if you're
Right, very good question. That means they're not reading, they're not having a bunch of conversation. The only thing they are allowed to do is to have their devotion in the morning, and they can have a devotion in the evening after the day's activity. But they're not reading because that burns energy. They're not doing anything. They're laying in bed and they only get up to go to the bathroom or to drink their fluids. That is rest. Their muscles are resting because it requires energy for the muscles to work. Okay.
okay?
Yeah. And a lot of people don't like that. I mean, they can't stand it to just lay down and not do anything. But
But you say in here that they are drinking water
yeah,
every half an hour for 10 hours.
yes, ma'am.
So aren't they running to the bathroom?
No, not excessively too bad, especially starting with a chemistry like what we illustrate. And but they would be allowed. The bathroom is right right close by usually. That's the only activity they got to do. But
Okay.
the key is we it they're it has to be tailored and controlled so their sugars don't fall too low, where which at that time they will run to the bathroom frequently.
Okay. Just curious.
Okay.
I have a quick question or comment as well.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that the amount of fluids that you drink is just about enough that uh, the cells are able to absorb it, and is not in excess that would cause you to have to run to the bathroom frequently. That's one
Okay.
understanding I have. Am I correct? In
Yeah.
other words, if you drink more than what you stipulated earlier, the 4 ounces or what 2 to 4 ounces, chances are the cells may not absorb that amount, so the excess will go to the urine.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's one way of controlling it, the way I understand it. The next
Mhm.
thing you said was that there's a rebuilding that comes after. So is that the next program that you'll be presenting, how to rebuild?
Well, I started the process here, and for all health conditions, this process is common to all health condition, um, except for some some persons may not receive a one-day water washout because their numbers may not require that. So they would go strictly into the fast and so on as we watch the miraculous working of the lemon water to get that liver do what it's supposed to do.
So the question is about after flushing the liver with
Mm.
the flush and the lemon to help rebuild, right? Is that what you said?
Right.
Okay. Then you
After
said
that,
then after that I'm talking about.
after that, then we put them on a light diet,
Yes.
which get
So
the
I'm
system.
asking, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You put them on a light diet. So this is all part of the program that you're presenting.
Right. Put them on a
Because
light diet.
because if someone does this on their own, they may not necessarily know exactly what is the right
Right.
combination of a light diet. So
Right.
there's some level of education that needs to be done. So
Right.
I'm asking, is that going to be the next presentation?
Okay. We will
Or
consider
or or,
that.
or you only get this during the retreat program?
No, I mean, I see where we are being equipped for service to minister. But of course, certain aspect of it, you want to be able to be able to look at the numbers and see and do, but there's a certain aspect and principle whereby without the numbers, without the other stuff, you can still even more intelligently, having this knowledge, plan a diet and a program for a person so that they can get rid of the omega and delta cells out of their body. With this knowledge here, it puts you, as Sister Emily says, it takes you out of the dark and give you something to look at, give you numbers, and give you values. And you can work with those.
Yes, if you understand what the values mean.
Yeah.
So that's why I ask if this only happens during the retreat program. For those who give the retreat program, such as yourself, would know what the numbers mean. The patient may not necessarily
Oh,
understand what
okay.
it means.
Right. The patients, we don't have patients.
Okay,
The
clients or
client,
whatever you call them, or
the
guests or whatever.
clients or students, they won't understand all the numbers and stuff. All they want to do is to feel better, to get well, and they would have learned how to live so that they can maintain their health. That's the key in a health situation. There's a lot of education, so the people understand the value of water, the value of exercise. There's a time for exercise and there's a time not for exercise, and all these things. So they would then go forth and live in such a way in this complicated world so that we don't have to see them. But some folks just want to come back and spend time.
And so my question again is that during the health retreat program, they're
Yeah.
taught, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's specifically addressing the concern I have.
Okay.
They're taught how to live and they're
Yes.
expected to continue that. I understand people may not continue that, but you're saying that they would have enough knowledge and education during the retreat program to continue as they need to. That's what you're saying?
Right. Right.
Thank
To
you.
drink their water, because usually they receive a program to go home with, and so they follow that. As far as we're learning the chemistry now, that's another question. That's a different process. Persons can learn all these things and learn the science and master the science as well. That's we have that information handy as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And any other question?
Yes, um, I know today we're looking at cancer, and I know that cancer tends to happen when the numbers, especially the pH, is under 6.4. What happens when the pH is over 6.4? pHs of 7, 8, even 9, the pretty much the same numbers we presented, but the pHs are on the higher side. What happens in that case? Is it still cancer, accumulation of cells, or is it something
Yeah.
different?
The further the numbers are away from perfect, the greater the amount of omega and delta cells that's being formed within the body. Because whether it's alkaline or acid, the deficiencies are going to result in omega cells just the same. I know in regular science, in regular natural medicine, they say cancer will not come in your alkaline environment. But the reality of it is, whether alkaline or acid, it will be a welcome guest with these numbers if the pHs were on the higher side. Because on the higher side, energy is the movement of energy is much slower, much slower. So what might occur is that person may lose energy slower. The process may be slower, but they can still get the omega, and they do still get the omega cells, whereby when you go acid, energy is moving more rapidly through the system. So the process will be much quicker, much faster. And if it's not stopped, it will take you out faster. You understand?
Okay, thank you.
So that's why it's necessary to monitor these numbers so you stay within the
Right.
prescribed 6.4 range, pH range, is what I'm
Right.
hearing.
Right. Right. And of course, we don't do the prescribe, stay within the range of the 6.4 and so on. But these things are not dealing with, is not dealing with disease, it's dealing with the chemistry and nutrition deficiency. And all we have to do, the most effective thing we can do is to get as much nutrients into the body, because we're built to live forever. Our cells are built to reproduce, to rebuild themselves, quite effortlessly. I mean, the process of building cell is a very rapid process. You see? So in prevention of omega cells, one would want to get as much nutrition into your system wherever you can, make sure you get in the nutrients, which is what eating's supposed to do, but these days we could be eating food that look like food and doesn't have the nutrient of those particular food. So we can't just say, okay, I don't like supplements, so I'm just going to eat my food. If you're growing your own food, and if they are nutritious, if you test them and they have the nutrients in there, then you're in much better shape than the man who has to use the supplement. But unless you know that, then it's like, a toss up or a little gambling there in hope that I'm getting the right nutrient. I'm getting the nutrient because I'm eating the food, I'm enjoying my food, but supplements or juicing gives the security, the assurance that I know I'm getting this nutrient, at least I'm getting it into the body. But of course, like I said, you can get a bunch of nutrients in, but if your chemistry is like what we described earlier, then it still won't do you much good. And so that's why vegetarian, plant-based are dying of the same disease condition as are the people who have nothing to do with health, from heart attack to stroke, the whole 9 yards. Vegetarians are dying the same way because, in the events, and I think we'll talk about that sometime. If we're not drinking water, that's the surest sign that we have awaiting us a heart attack or a stroke, while enjoying the greatest plant-based meals that anyone could enjoy. Yeah. Any more question? Welcome, Sister Brenda, Sister Belly. Sorry you missed the presentation. I figure y'all probably fell asleep. And oh yeah, Sister Belly, it's midnight over. It's after midnight over where you are. So you have a great excuse. Sister Brenda, she may have fallen asleep.
Logins, I was having a challenge logging in.
Oh, okay. You were having a challenge logging in. Okay. Sorry about that. It's been recorded, so you will get the benefit of the recording. Any more question? So what we did in summary is we looked at review from the previous presentation, the omega cells and delta cells, and one of the clearest crystallized point is to see that how the cells become cancer, mineral deficiency. So the cells are retained in their location. They are not exchanged. No new cell is built. So it just stayed there until it falls off the tree like a peach that gets rotten on the tree. It easily falls off at the wind blowing. That's sort of like the situation. It just cuts connection with the nerve, becomes a dead cell. It's an omega cell. And as to whether a person is healthy or sick will determine whether the body throws that dead tissue, dead cells out in 2 to 3 days, 1 to 3 days, or whether if we're sick, the body keep it there for months and months and weeks, while other tissue continue to deteriorate, and that is your omega cells or cancers that is in the making.
All right, okay.
Okay, you remember that from the last time.
Yes, I remember that.
And then we looked at the organs, the minerals that is unique to each organ, which when those minerals are lacking, then, the cells die off.
Yeah.
Cells form. Mega cell is cancer, right? All right, but that's kind of like it. If there's no more question, I'm going to stop the recording.
I have a question.
Okay.
So is
So
it
how different is this program, the first one, body chemistry analysis, from the medical missionary training? Is it not part of the medical missionary training?
I didn't get you. Your question is
No, I'm asking relating to the offering, your offering, the courses. The first
yeah,
one, the body chemistry analysis course.
yeah.
How different is it from medical missionary training?
Okay. Great question. Medical missionary covers a lot. You learn the natural remedies, you learn the health principle, the lifestyle principles, and how to apply the simple remedies. And also within medical missionary training, you learn how to deal with different conditions. Now, with the body chemistry course, you learn how to analyze the body chemistry, how to do the body chemistry numbers, to interpret those numbers, and to plan a diet and lifestyle based upon those body chemistry number, regardless of the condition. So it becomes a great tool for anyone who is medical missionary. It would only sharpen their skill. It'll only give them a better grasp on what to do in any given situation, regardless of what the names they might be called.
All right, okay.
Okay. Is this Emily? You were saying something?
yes, Sister Belly was not here when I commented, because one of the things that I realized, children, I'm talking. one of the things that I realized through this presentation is that as a medical missionary, when you do not have the knowledge of body chemistry, it's like you're stabbing a knife in the dark. You may, as a medical missionary, provide all the nutrients the body is needing, but if the numbers are not at the perfect level, a perfect ratio, then they are not being absorbed. The body is not utilizing it, utilizing those nutrients the way it should. So it's not the therapy you're giving may not be effective because of that. But now, because you have an understanding of the body chemistry, you're able to do the therapy in a different way to allow the body now to assimilate the nutrients you're giving correctly and utilize them. Yeah, but it's kind of a redundant question that I want to ask, Brother Peter, because we already know that some children are born sick anyway as a result of the parents' habits and lifestyles before that. But I just wanted to say, is it safe to assume on a general scale, if the parents are healthy, then the children, when they are born naturally with like a perfect chemistry, and then over time, maybe because of dietary habits, then the chemistry goes down, etc., etc.
Right. Right. If the parent's health is perfect, or even if it's not even perfect, but perfect enough where the child will get the right nutrient, then the child can be born to start out with perfect numbers for their age. And that is possible. And this is the problem with the way science is conducted today, by using population average to assume that, okay, you got 1 million people and they look like they're all healthy, moving around and walking around, they're exercising and so on. And we do the average of those 1 million people and we get pHs in these people range from 5.2 through to 7 point whatever. And so that becomes the norm. Okay, if your pH is between this level and this level, then you're fine, you're healthy. That is not science. Statistics is not science. These numbers are based upon mathematical calculation. And with these numbers, the geniuses that have gone before were able to see anything in the body mathematically calculated with these numbers, wherever it is in the body. They could tell you. I remember one experience Dr. Reams shared where he was able to look at the numbers and tell the person what's going on with their lungs. And they did an x-ray. And the exact description that Dr. Reams gave of the lungs is what showed up on the x-ray. He worked with the Florida hospital for 30 years, and he would do the chemistry on the patients before they operate. And he would tell the physicians where the problem was, what the problem was. As long as they followed his instruction, they don't miss the target. But when they fail to follow his instruction, they miss the target. For 30 years, he was a soil scientist, a mathematician, a biophysicist, and he is still ahead of science today. He is still way ahead. And as my wife and I are just barely scratching the surface. As I'm going back over these information, I'm saying, man, this thing is deep. This thing is deep. All right. Any other question?
Thoroughness.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording now. And we will have the recording. Okay, let's see. Stop recording.